Welcome to another episode of AI News You Can Use with me, Dr. Marie Haynes. If you have heard podcasts before, you know it's search news you can use. I'm still very much in love with search and with understanding what Google's doing. But in these days, what AI is doing is really my top priority. In this episode, I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about what's happening with jobs and why I believe that the future is actually very exciting. However, I think we have some rocky road to go through. It blows my mind that there are billions, potentially trillions of dollars being spent on developing AI. This year, Google announced 75 billion is going towards AI. Meta is spending 60 to 65 billion. Amazon over 100 billion. And you've probably heard of Project Stargate with the US government is involved. It's a joint venture between OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and some others to invest over 500 billion in developing AI in the US over the next few years. There is so much money being spent on AI, yet I really don't know that many people who are making money from AI. So there's a disconnect here. In fact, what I see is a lot of people are losing jobs. A lot of people have fear for the future. So what I want to do here is share my vision for why the future is good and to share some thoughts on what we can be doing in this time period where there's a lot of transition happening. I want to start by reading a quote from Sam Altman. Sam Altman is the co-founder of OpenAI, and he has a blog that he's written called The Intelligence Age. So let me share what he wrote here. It won't happen all at once, but we'll soon be able to work with AI that helps us accomplish much more than we ever could without AI. Eventually, we can each have a personal AI team full of virtual experts in different areas, working together to create almost anything we can imagine. Our children will have virtual tutors who can provide personalized instruction on any subject, in any language, and at whatever pace they need. We can imagine similar ideas for better healthcare, the ability to create any kind of software someone can imagine, and much more. With these new abilities, we can have shared prosperity to a degree that seems unimaginable today. In the future, everyone's lives can be better than anyone's life is now. So that sounds pretty promising, doesn't it? Now, some people might say, well, of course Sam Altman is going to be bullish on AI because he builds AI and has a lot to profit from this. I thoroughly believe that what he's saying is correct. I know many of you are probably not fans of Elon Musk. I think we need to pay attention to what Musk is doing as his XAI is going to be very, very important in terms of the development of AI in the world. At least I think it is. And he has said that we won't need, I don't know if you've heard of universal basic income, but a lot of people are saying that AI is going to take so many jobs that we are going to need to have this universal basic income so that everybody has essentially enough money to live on. Well, Elon says that actually what we need is a universal high income, and that's what we're going to have. And he says that AI will produce so much prosperity in the world that everybody will have more than enough, and no one will ever have to work again. I know it seems kind of fanciful, but let me see if I can explain how I think we're going to get there. So today, the things that we use AI for are not world changing. At least they don't seem to be, at least not for me. I use AI like multiple times per day. I'm constantly jumping between ChatGPT, Gemini, and sometimes Grok as well. I use it to help me organize my thoughts. I used ChatGPT voice before recording this podcast to just sort of bounce ideas back and forth and help me figure out the structure of what I wanted to say here. I used ChatGPT for images. And the new ChatGPT images are pretty exciting, but none of that is making me insanely prosperous. But I believe it's coming. So how do we get from where we are now with language models, with AI, to a world where we're prosperous? And what do we do if we are facing job loss at this point? The next thing that we're going to see is agents. You're going to be sick of hearing about AI agents. And it's for good reason, because AI will change how we interact with people on the web, how we interact with websites on the web. And much of what we do today, if you are an SEO, involves working with websites to make them look better for people and for Google's algorithms. But eventually, a lot of the communication that happens on the web will be done where my AI agent goes out and researches what's on your website and comes back with information for me. And this is why a lot of informational websites have not done well with recent Google updates, because the world's information has already been pulled into AI, and Google doesn't so much need websites anymore in order to provide people with information, unless you are the type of business where people still want to see you outside of getting information. So, for example, the other day I was using an agent, ChatGPT Operator. Operator uses its own browser, and what it does is will go out and do tasks for me. So I asked it, I'm speaking at a conference in Toronto in October, and they gave me a list of hotels. And so I started researching the hotels. I'm like, okay, well, this one's kind of close, but it's super expensive, and I really don't enjoy looking for hotels and for flights. And so then I thought, well, I could get Operator to do this for me. And Operator opened up a browser. I gave it my list of criteria that I wanted and started to make a list of, it actually went to the website of each hotel. It clicked on the date picker, chose the dates that I needed to be in Toronto for, and started to make a list of the costs of hotel rooms in each of these hotels. Funny enough, though, with all of the image generation that's been happening with ChatGPT, the whole ChatGPT went down this week, and my Operator was not able to finish its tasks. So I will let you know how that works out. I'm going to have it try to find the best flights for me as well for a couple of other events I have coming up. Now, that might seem disappointing. You're like, well, how is that going to change the world? You used a system to save you half an hour of work, and it didn't even work. I'll tell you, these agents are going to get better and better. You've probably seen or heard of deep research. There's deep research projects by Gemini, by OpenAI, and also with Grok. They each have their own strengths. Right now, I'm finding ChatGPT deep research to be the best for me. It goes into great detail, and it takes quite some time, though, to produce a report. I use Grok if I'm doing deep research on something that requires knowledge of what's happening in the world right now. And Gemini, I find, is good when I know with my deep research I'm going to want to click on websites and do more research on the websites as well. Deep research is an agent. It's not just search. It is something where it'll do a search and it'll go to a website and start learning about the thing I asked it to search for. And based on what it learns, it decides whether to go on to another website. I don't know if it actually clicks links on the website, but it will eventually, basically what it's doing is it's searching the web for me. It's acting as an agent. At Google I/O last year in 2024, they said that AI will eventually do the searching for us, which is a whole different paradigm. Again, though, that doesn't really make us a ton of money, does it? So let me tell you a little bit more about how I think we will eventually use agents to be very prosperous. A couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to start creating this tool. And the tool was to help assess traffic drops in website traffic drops, just like I did. And boy, the hours I've put into this. I say a couple of years ago, actually, when I used to have an agency, I had a whole team of people that were working on creating this type of tool. I've put a lot of money and a lot of time into trying to create this thing and never really had good success with it. Well, and then a couple years ago when ChatGPT came out, I thought, well, I can code it and I can learn. And every time ChatGPT would give me code, I'd put it into VS Code, and then it would make an error. I'd put that into ChatGPT, and it would tell me how to fix the error, but then that would cause more errors, and it was really, really awful. Well, lately, if you have tried to code with LLMs in the past and been frustrated, try again. I've been using ChatGPT o3 Mini, but I'm one of those enthusiastic people who pays $200 a month for ChatGPT and have unlimited prompts for O3 Mini. I've heard that the new Gemini 2.5 is incredible for coding and also is in Cursor, which Cursor, basically you just talk to the system and say, I want a tool that does this. And then it produces something for you and you say, oh, could we make the buttons orange or whatever? And people have been creating some pretty fantastic things with these tools. So the other day I said to ChatGPT, I'd like a tool that connects with Google Search Console and prints out charts of all of the sites that I monitor and shows me, their traffic patterns. And it took almost no time at all. It wrote it in Python. I really don't know any Python, but it created something absolutely incredible. And then as I was doing my client work, I was like, man, I wish I could have a tool that just tells me the top pages that lost traffic. And there are tools that do that, but like I have a whole system that I use in Search Console. And I'm like, if only I could take what I currently do and automate it. So I explained it to ChatGPT. I'm telling you, within like 10, maybe 15 minutes, I had built this tool that does what I want to do. And, if I want, I might one day make it public. I have to figure out the security issues and whatnot. There's all sorts of, horror stories of people vibe coding like this and producing stuff that has their API key in it and costs them a bunch of money. But at this point, all of a sudden, ChatGPT is becoming something really helpful to me. And it hasn't directly made me money, but it has saved me a bunch of time. I did a site review last week that would have taken me many, many days to do. And I think I cut off probably 10 hours of work by using the tools that I created. So AI agents are helping me get better. Now, I can picture that there's a day where I can take this further. I think my next step is to take the pages that dropped in traffic, and what I'm doing now is manually evaluating them to determine things like how well they align with Google's guidance on helpful content, how helpful they are, a number of different things, and usually I can find the patterns. Well, it wouldn't take that much for me to write that into some prompts so that I can have an AI agent do that for me as well. There are other things I could build an agent for, such as administrative tasks. So if people contact me with problems with their newsletter subscription, then I can create an AI agent that can converse with them and surface things to me when there's a problem. I really think that the day is coming where you can use my AI agents and greatly improve your SEO. I won't be the only one with AI agents. Other SEOs will put their processes into agents as well. And then what I will be doing is being freed up for the people who have really big budget to have me work on something directly. And I don't know, maybe the day will come where my AI agents do a better job than I do. I'm going to talk in a minute about AI in our brains, and I think we will get to the point where AI completely augments us and makes us far better at everything that we do. So, I think that the day is coming where AI agents will work like employees for me. And it might be something right now. I guess I probably have about 4 or 5 little programs that I run. They're not really agents, but what makes something an agent is its ability to use tools. So actually, maybe it is because it's connecting with the Google Search Console API. But eventually, these things will talk with each other. Now, what if I had 1,000 different AI agents out there? All of a sudden I can do the work that it would have taken an agency to do. And all of them have my thought process, that the same thing that I would have thought. So I think that I will become very productive and hopefully prosperous in creating these AI agents. So how does that make us more prosperous as the world, though? Because if I'm a prosperous SEO, what about somebody who doesn't have AI agents? They're going to lose their job. I'm going to get to those people in a minute. But first, let's talk about the businesses that I work with. So right now, my AI agents will be looking at the helpfulness of their content. But eventually, what we'll be doing is trying to find ways to optimize their business. I have a few clients right now that are in the early stages of trying to figure out how can we benefit from using AI, not just for SEO, but for improving our business overall. And it might be things like adding a chatbot via voice. Some of the new agents that use voice to talk with people are actually quite good. It might be using AI to do deep research on competitors and to get an advantage. Or it might be using AI to do deep research to investigate new procedures and new IP that they want to create. You may have heard that OpenAI is potentially soon going to have agents that cost thousands of dollars per month. I heard a rumor that, or it was in some website, that OpenAI is going to be releasing agents that cost $20,000 a month, which seems ludicrous. But what if those agents can do research and develop products for you that eventually could make companies millions of dollars? I do believe that we're getting to that point. And actually, these agents, so I talked about using OpenAI Operator. Google has a version of this called Project Mariner, which is going to do the same thing. We've only seen early video of it where what they do is they give a spreadsheet of some businesses, and then the agent goes off and visits those businesses' websites, finds contact information, and fills out the spreadsheet. Very rudimentary stuff, but I believe that we're not far from the day where my AI agent will take my newsletter when I'm done, will publish it on my website, will go to ConvertKit and make it into an email, and before it's ready to send it out, will say to me, "Hey Marie, I'm done putting newsletter into ConvertKit. You want to give it a look over before I hit the send button?" And it'll be just like having a bunch of assistants working for me. Well, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, has said that within 2 to 3 years, agents like Project Mariner, which is Google's version, will be deeply embedded into our workflow. Within 2 to 3 years, that's significant. I want to read you another quote from Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder of DeepMind, probably the main creator of Gemini, the language model and the AI technology that Google is using today. He said, "I think that we're going to end up with a kind of economics model where agents talk to other agents and negotiate things between themselves and then give you back the results. And you'll have the service providers with agents as well that are offering services. And maybe there's some bidding and cost and things like that involved and efficiency. And then I hope from the user's perspective, you have this assistant that's super capable, just like a brilliant human assistant, and can take care of a lot of the mundane things for you." And I think if you follow that through, that does imply a lot of changes to the structure of the web and the way we currently use it. I think there will be incredible opportunities that will appear, economic and otherwise, based on this change, but I think it's going to be a big disruption. So we are they're just talking about the next few years. We know that Google's AI mode is coming, and that is kind of like AI overviews, except that it doesn't just do a search and retrieve information from an index. It uses something called a query fan-out technique, where it takes the query and actually figures out what would the next queries be that you would follow up with this, and gives you results that are much more helpful. We will still need websites for the most, for a number of things, but some types of websites will not be as necessary. So what does that do for SEOs? Let's talk about job loss. I know a number of people who are fantastic SEOs who are currently looking for jobs. And it's not for lack of skill. I'll give a shout out here to my friend Nick Leroy, who runs SEOjobs.com. I think that's a fantastic place to find jobs. But even then, it's getting harder and harder to find a job in this area. I talked to an SEO who runs an agency recently. Actually, I've had 2 conversations like this in the last few months where both of these people said they let go of a bunch of their junior copywriters. Now, they're not having AI write all of the copy that they put on websites, but they used to pay people to write the initial copy, and then it would go to a higher level editor to expand upon that. And now that initial stage, they feel that AI does a better better job. And so those copywriters are out of work. I think we'll get to the point. I don't think image generation is quite at the point where it completely replaces the need for humans who do graphics. But I think a lot of people who used to pay money for stock images or for professional logos, a lot of them are finding that AI is providing answers. Similarly, video. OpenAI's Sora, I like using it because it produces funny videos. They're not really completely lifelike, but Google will soon be coming out with VO, which I have seen makes incredible videos, and they will just continue to get better and better from here. And so we're going to see that a lot of jobs are lost on the digital marketing scene. I think that it goes well beyond that, though. I asked on X and on some other social media, I said I was going to be doing this podcast and asked for some thoughts or questions. And Cindy Crum asked me a good question about the Internet of Things and how AI will change that. Think of all of the electronic stuff that you have in your house, your fridge, your thermostat, your vacuum cleaner, like all of these things that run on some form of electricity. Well, I think that all of those eventually will communicate via AI agents. And what's going to happen is that everything will be automated. The other day, funny story, we are always losing our power here at our house. And the power went out during a storm a little while back. And so we did what we always do. We grabbed some candles and some board games and live like, the olden days with no electricity. I'm going to talk about electricity in a minute. And then, and I was texting our hydro company to report an outage. And anyways, about like 10 o'clock at night, we get a knock on the door. And it's these two men from hydro. And they went down, they said, "You're the only house on the street that has no power. So there must be something wrong with your house." And after a bit of investigation, they found out that a fuse had blown somehow. And we never really figured out what caused it, but it was easy to fix. And so those men helped us. Well, I don't think we're long from the day where my home AI system would be able to determine what's going on. All of the wiring, all of the electricity, all of the appliances probably will be automated and optimized. I would imagine that, the way that energy is transmitted to appliances would be optimized for when we need them. And we're going to see all sorts of improvements. Now, if that happens, those two men who came to my house will be out of a job. There might be certain jobs that humans are needed for, but I think that we're going to see that AI will do just as good a job for lawyers, for real estate agents, for even eventually, I believe that robots will do a lot of the jobs that humans currently do. I've told this story before, but imagine a grocery store that is run by robots. And you might say, well, I don't want to go to a robot grocery store. I want to go to the one that has a human cashier. But the store that's run by AI will have everything optimized. It'll have the perfect temperature. It'll have cashiers that, say exactly the right things to you and know exactly where to find anything and can make really good suggestions and perhaps even integrate with your own personal agents. You might have an AI agent in your fridge that's like, your milk is low and, it's been a while since you had that kind of cheese that you like, and suggest things for you. The grocery store owner is going to employ robots rather than people because these robots don't need breaks. They don't complain. They might break down from time to time, but you just replace them with another robot. And so I think we're going to see that a lot of human jobs are taken over with robots. And I know that that's a terrifying thing, but I think it's just inevitable. So I want to take you back to the 1800s. Imagine, I think a lot of us who are listening to this podcast right now are like lamplighters. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about here, but a lamplighter in the 1800s was somebody who would walk around every night with this big long stick with a wick on the end. And they would set the wick on fire and hold the stick up to the lamps that had gas in them. They'd light the gas, which would light the lamp in the city. And so city lighting was all done by gaslight. And funny story, I thought that, the phrase gaslighting, I thought it was people who used to be lamplighters were called gaslighters. It actually turns out that that's from a movie. Well, actually, that's not true. The movie came out in the 40s. In the 30s, there was a play about a man who tried to make his wife think she was crazy by continually turning the power down on the gas lights, and she and then denying that it happened. I'm really getting off track here, but let's go back to lamplighters. So lamplighters lost their jobs because of electricity. In 1879, Thomas Edison invented the incandescent light bulb that used electricity to light things. By the 1880s, these light bulbs were appearing in major cities and were lighting the streets. And all sorts of people had complaints about the light, that the light that was lit by a lantern by gas was much softer, and electrical light was hard on our eyes. And people would complain about the new electricity that was coming out. And electricity was dangerous. People would say, well, they actually thought, there was a pervasive thought that electricity leaked out of the wires, and there was a good chance that if you had electrical wires in your house that you could be electrocuted in your sleep. I don't think any cases of that happened, but a lot of people believed that. And there was a lot, understandably so, there was a lot of people who did not want electricity to take over the world. Now, imagine your world today without electricity. It's just a part of our lives. Just like I think the changes I'm going to talk about in a minute with AI are going to be a part of our lives, whether we like it or not. So a lot of people didn't want electricity to happen. Let's go back even further to 1440. That's when the printing press was developed. And people lost jobs there too. If you were a scribe who, this is how knowledge would be transferred, is people would write it down by hand and would copy books. And very few people could actually read because there weren't actually a lot of copies of books at that time. The printing press allowed us to spread knowledge way faster. Now, when the printing press was developed, apparently it took about 50 years for other printing presses to be used. And then it took a couple of 100 years before it became commonplace, that most people knew how to read and most people could get their information from print. In the time of the 1880s, or 1890s, when electrical lighting started to happen, it took about 40 years before pretty much every household had electricity in it. And I think with AI, it's going to take about a decade before this technology is pervasive in pretty much every home. Now, electricity, it made life easier for people. It allows us to stay up later and be more productive and use vacuums and washing machines and refrigerators. It radically improved our life. I think about how AI or electricity allowed for factories to be made. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. But if it wasn't for electricity, we wouldn't have widespread automobiles like we have today, that the factories were able to mass produce. They used to use steam production, and then electrical engines made things work much, much faster. Well, if you think about it, electricity, if we didn't have the automobiles that we have today, I did some research, and it turns out that it's estimated that vehicles since their creation have killed about 75 million people. So electricity had some horrible consequences, and there were fires with electricity. And so I think you see what I'm getting at, is that there was a lot of negative to this new technology, yet it's pervasive in our lives today. It's funny because when electricity started to become something that pretty much everybody had, that's where the phrase "don't get left in the dark" came from. Is if you were somebody who was not on board with electricity, you were probably behind and you had a disadvantage as compared to the rest of society. And I think that that's where we're going to be very soon with AI, that if you don't like AI, if you're just critical of AI, rather than the people who accept it and try to figure out how to do good with it, you're going to be left in the dark. dark, so to say. And I'm not completely naive. Like, I know that there's potential for bad to happen with AI. I think things are going to happen with our economy. I'm worried about the divide between those who have technology and those who do not. I think that AI will be used in war in ways that are hard to comprehend. But I also think that no matter what, like, there's really nothing we can do to stop it. We can complain, we can argue, we can talk about the negatives, but regardless, it's going ahead. Now, I also think some of that's not fair. I think that the power in creating AI lies in the hands of just a few corporations, massive corporations that are run on capitalism and require money. And so, this makes life unfair. But also, I think it is what it is. Like, I can't see any scenario where we shut down the advancement of AI. So, let me go on here to explain what I think the next decade is going to look like and how things are going to progress and how humanity is going to change and what I'm excited about. So I talked about agents. We're going to start seeing more with agents. And if you're in SEO, I would really be focusing on understanding agents. Right now, it's difficult, but eventually it's going to be the thing that everybody is going to need development help on. And I think that a lot of people who are jobless right now, if you can just hang in there until every business needs multiple agents, there's going to be more than enough work for people who have that skill. The next big thing is wearables. So you've probably heard of Project Astra. I got to demo it at Google I/O, where I played Pictionary with Gemini and drew some things, and Gemini guessed what it was. And then did Gemini draw something for me? I can't remember. But regardless, Project Astra is where you can share the world in front of you with AI. And initially it'll be on our phones, but eventually it'll be in glasses. And that's not that far away. Meta already has glasses with AI in it. You can get Ray-Ban glasses. And this week I saw that a new version is coming out where not only will you be able to converse with AI in your glasses and say, hey, tell me more about this thing I'm looking at, but also there will be a screen that if you look down to the bottom right, you'll see a screen where you can get information from your glasses. And so Google has their version called Project Astra that will be coming out very, very soon. Like, I think it could be any day now that the majority of people who have Android phones should have access to Project Astra. I don't know when the glasses are coming out, but I have heard that it should be this year. So that will change some things. It will change. I can picture that I'm out in my yard, and instead of me, doing Google searches to figure out what is this bug on my plants, instead I'll just ask it of my glasses, and my glasses will be able to identify. It probably will rely on Google Lens and will pull from websites as well as world knowledge to say, oh yeah, that looks like that's probably this type of bug, and it's fine, nothing to worry about. Or maybe it's this type of invasive parasite, and you should really get a product. And by the way, would you like me to connect with the nearest store that can sell it and deliver it to you? And, I never had to pick up a computer or a phone in order to do that. So Project Astra is going to change a lot about how we communicate in the world. The problem with AI in our glasses is that most of us don't really like doing voice search, including me. I can't imagine walking around just talking to my glasses. And I think that we won't have to do that for very long. So Meta has this technology that they've been developing for a while, and it's wrist technology. If you right now put your hands out in front of yourself and start typing your name, imagine you're typing your name. As you're doing that, you're sending neural impulses down your arm and through your wrist into your fingers. And what this device does is it can determine what you are trying to type by how your fingers are moving. Eventually, you can move your fingers less and less, and you can train your brain to send the signals for typing. And so Meta says that we'll be able to type 5 times faster with our brains than we currently can with our fingers. And you might not even need that. There's other technology. I saw one where it looks at facial expressions, so you can just mouth the words that you were thinking of typing, and AI will figure out what you were trying to say. There will be other techniques as well. And then, of course, some people will get neural implants. And I know that seems kind of out there. There's very few people right now that probably want to go and get a Neuralink implanted. Neuralink's not the only company that's doing brain-computer interfaces. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's happening. I read a story this week of a company that has a device that doesn't need invasive brain surgery to implant. It puts it in your jugular vein, and it can pick up on the blood vessels that come from your brain and actually somehow decode thoughts from that, which is pretty wild. I don't think these will be things where somebody can hack into and be like, now I'm going to put thoughts in your brain. It'll be just like my phone, that if I want to text my husband, I pick up my phone, I decide to open my messaging app, I type what I want to type, and I hit send. And I think it will be the same thing, that if I want to text my husband, I just think the thought to open up messaging, and maybe I see a screen in front of me in my glasses. I don't know if I need to have that. And then I think what I'm going to type, and then I think about hitting the send button, and it goes to him. Now, that is kind of a wild thing to think about, because the day will come where we will have all of humanity's information accessible in our brains. We used to transfer information. Years ago, if somebody wanted to know something, you had to learn it from somebody else. And then we had print, and then we had radio and television and the internet. And then we're going to have the stage where AI provides us information in our brains, and we can communicate with anybody, anywhere in our brains, which I don't know what that does to mental health. Well, let me talk about health for a minute. This is one of the things I'm very excited about. You may have heard of AlphaFold. AlphaFold is a Google product that is owned by Google's Isomorphic Labs, and they have connections with certain pharmaceutical companies, I believe Novartis and some others, and they're going to be discovering drugs. AlphaFold does something called protein folding, and it takes a PhD student who's learning about different proteins in the body. Apparently, it can take like 10 years to figure out all the configurations of one protein. And once you've figured that out and you know how it folds, then you can design drugs that bind with that protein. Well, AlphaFold can do that in a very short amount of time. I can't remember if it's minutes or hours, but it can do it very, very quickly. And so what they've realized is that there's a whole opportunity out here where AlphaFold can design drugs for almost any condition. And I think that that's terribly exciting, but I also think that the day will come where we don't need drugs. So let me share my vision. Whenever I'm at a conference, often I ask people this question when we're having a few drinks after the conference. And I'm going to ask you this question too. If you could solve any problem in the world, what would it be? And it's very rare that people are like, oh, it's going to be money. Something that makes me a lot of money. People are good. People want to solve sickness, disease, climate change, poverty. There's, everybody I talk to has this fantastic goal. Well, not everybody. Some people are like, I never thought about that. I really think that it's in most of us to be able to solve big problems. It's just that we don't have the resources to do it. Well, mine is, I believe that, and I don't know if it's me or just AI, will solve pain and sickness for the vast majority of things. Now, some pain is necessary. If you break your arm, your body sends pain signals so that you don't use that arm while it's healing. But a lot of the time, people have chronic pain that I really believe is the result of neural scripts. I call them neural scripts. They're basically that your brain has made this pattern of how it reacts to things that is just not optimal. I think a lot of disease is that way too. We see, I know a number of you who are listening to this have just chronic, I don't feel well, chronic being tired, having pain, joints are sore. I believe all of that is mostly because of stress, because our bodies were not meant to live in this world where we're constantly bombarded with information. And that is why I wonder what's going to happen as AI gets into our brains. We need to figure out how to have time to rest. Well, right now I'm wearing this Google Pixel watch, and it's attached to a Fitbit. And if I get excited about something, or if I get stressed about something, I get a notification on my watch that says, we've noticed you're stressed or excited. And it asks me to label it. It's funny because I've been labeling this for like 2 years and I still haven't seen Google do anything with it or me get any information from it. But I'm sure that I'm teaching some machine learning system somewhere how to recognize when my body's signals are saying that something's wrong. And so if I label it as excited, then the watch says, great, keep that feeling. Remember how that feels. Remember how you got there. If I label it as stressed, then it offers to walk me through a relaxation exercise where it takes me through deep breathing. And, that can be very helpful. Well, I think that we can get to a point where AI in our bodies, whether it's in our brain, in our wearables, in some type of device, maybe our phones, can recognize when our biological signals when our biofeedback is out of whack, and what it takes to put us back in whack, if that's the right word. And so I think that we will have a time where we are of optimal mental health and in most cases physical health as well. And maybe I'm being fanciful. I always find it fascinating to watch AI leaders. The vast majority of AI leaders, if you see Demis Hassabis speak, he is a joyful man. And you would think that somebody who sees what's ahead, who sees where AI is taking the world, would be fearful. And yet all of these leaders seem to just have this joy and this excitement about them. I shouldn't say all. Geoffrey Hinton, who is one of the founders of AI, really developed neural networks. When you see him talk, he's fearful about the future. And he actually believes that AI could do damage to humanity. That, it reminds me of the time where electricity was being used around the world. And Thomas Edison, who designed the light bulb, actually, I found a newspaper clipping from 1890 where he predicted that one out of, how many was it now? 1 out of 2,000 New Yorkers would be killed by electricity if we eventually put alternating current into electricity, which is what we have today, and had a lot of fear about how electricity would harm society. So I'm kind of going on down a rabbit hole right now, but the vast majority of the AI leaders that I know really do believe that AI is changing our society for the better. So what happens when we have AI in our brains or intertwined with our thought process? Like today when I made this podcast, but it wouldn't be the same without AI. I sat down with ChatGPT Voice and talked back and forth about what I wanted to talk about, and it gave me some feedback. I had Gemini finish some sentences for me. Both of the tools did some research for me about electricity and the printing press and stuff like that. Really what you're hearing is my thought that has been augmented by AI. I don't know if you've heard the story of AlphaGo. So AlphaGo, again, is a Google product that came out of DeepMind, and it learned to play the game Go. The game Go is very, very complicated, and it's not an easy one for a computer to solve. So Demis Hassabis tells this story about how when he developed AI, the AI that he has been building, it started with Atari games. And when I heard this story, I was like, holy cow, that's how I learned as well. I used to play, I loved my Atari, the game Pitfall. I don't know if any of you remember it. You'd take this little guy and jump across on a vine, and you had to land on the crocodile's head, or was it an alligator? I'm not sure. And then end up on the other side. And if you missed, the alligator ate you or you drowned, and then you had to do the whole thing over again. And each time you did it, you would learn how to not make mistakes. And each time you got to the end, it would play this little blue thing, and then your dopamine level would go up, and you'd want to do the next level and learn again. Well, this is how AI learned, and this is how AlphaGo learned, was by playing games against itself. And every time it won, it would learn that this was a good thinking pattern to have. And when it lost, it would learn, okay, well, that something wasn't quite optimal in that thinking pattern. So there was a famous, and there's a great documentary that I'd encourage you to watch. It's on YouTube if you look up AlphaGo and DeepMind. And it tells the story of how AlphaGo played against the world's champion in Go. And they tell this story of the infamous Move 37. So Move 37, the computer was making a move, and it made a move that no human would ever make. And you could tell that the team behind AlphaGo was like kind of worried. They're like, what happened? Was there a mistake? It was almost embarrassing, the move that it made. And sure enough, by the end of the game, the computer won. And the reason it won was what was set up by this Move 37. Move 37 was something no human had ever thought of before, at least as far as is in recorded history. And so this showed us that AI can come up with some innovative things. And now the game of Go did not die when AI overtook it. In fact, it inspired many people to become better at Go. Just like when AI started to play chess, it's not like it destroyed chess, it made people better at playing chess. AI is designed to make people better. It has the potential to make us healthier, and it will continue to innovate and to improve. I really, really believe that we are headed into a world where AI makes our lives better. Now, I know that doesn't help those of you who are out of a job right now. And I know if I think back to the time of the lamplighters, it took like 40 years for technology to change so that the number of new jobs that were created with electricity was far greater than those who were lost. But those who were lamplighters at the time went through hardship. And I know some of you are going through hardship right now. So I want to just share a few things on how I think what I think you can do. But just like the lamplighters, I can't see where technology is going completely. I can just give you my thoughts. So the first thing I would say is, if you are currently in a job, I would encourage you to find ways to bring AI into your business. Start with one little thing. Learn to vibe code. Learn to code with the help of AI. Whether you use ChatGPT, a lot of people use Claude. I haven't talked about Claude. I don't know why I don't use it. I think I just really feel like one of either Google, ChatGPT, or Grok will be the AI that everybody uses, and maybe it'll be a multitude, but Claude does a great job of programming as well. The new Gemini 2.5 is available in Cursor, and a lot of people have said that it is by far the best. So that's something to try as well. But I'd encourage you to try to solve a problem. Try to create something. Thomas Edison has this phrase where he said, "I have not failed 10,000 times. I've successfully found 10,000 ways that will not work." And so I would encourage you to just start doing things, trying to do things with AI, and knowing that you're going to fail. And knowing that, my first times that I tried to code things, it failed. But then when I tried to do it the next time, I didn't have to go through all those initial steps of figuring out what VS Code is and figuring out what to paste where. And you'll get better each time that you try something. Here's a prompt that you can use in any of the tools. If you have access to a thinking model, actually, I think the best one to use is if you go to aistudio.google.com, in the drop-down for models, you can choose the latest version of Gemini, which is Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental 0325. That stands for March 25th, and when it was released. And it's a thinking model, and all of Gemini's models are going to be thinking models from this point on. What that means is that it doesn't just spit out a response. It takes some time to process the response, which means that you get a better response. So here's a prompt you can try. I want to learn how to use AI in a way that will make a significant difference in my life. Ask me questions one at a time to help us figure out what to learn. and have a conversation with the AI about what you can do. Now, it might say things that are completely out of whack and doesn't make any sense. I've had some conversations like this where I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't helpful. And then I've had other conversations that really have helped me figure out my direction and where I'm headed. The next thing that I would recommend is that you stay up to date with what's happening in AI, which is a really hard thing to do. Like just this last week, so many things happened in AI. I do have a newsletter, mariehaynes.com/newsletter. It used to be heavy into SEO. I still cover SEO at the end of the newsletter, but the main part of the newsletter, which is free, is for all that's happened in AI within the last week or so. Sometimes it takes me a couple weeks to get it out. And so staying on top of what's happening is important because the people who understand how AI works and how AI is changing our world are going to be the most important people in the world, I believe. Now, if you don't currently have a job, this is tough. I do believe that the time is coming where anybody with skills in the digital world will be in great demand. I mean, every business is going to need multiple agents, and there will be a huge need for people who understand them. However, right now, if you're out of work, I don't know what you do. I think some people will need to take other jobs that are not related to SEO and maybe work on learning AI in the background until the opportunities come out. I would recommend for some of you that you become an expert in AI in a particular area. Like let's say right now you do SEO for dentists and you're finding that it's getting harder and harder to get a job doing SEO for dentists. Well, you could research how AI is changing dentistry. You could start a newsletter on it. You could write a blog on how AI is changing that particular industry and then become known as the go-to place for dentists as dentists over the next few years start trying to figure out how do I put AI into my practice? How do I use it to optimize my business and make me more money? One thing I would say is don't be afraid to share. We have made this culture where we like to criticize so much. I'm sure I'll get comments on this podcast, saying, oh, you love AI when it's going to destroy lives. And people just love to criticize. And what I would say is that there are far more people who get enjoyment out of what you share, but just don't share and leave comments. So I would encourage you to share what you learn. The next thing I would recommend is, like I said before, learn to vibe code because I think coding is going to be very, very important. And I think eventually everybody is going to be able to make products with AI. Now, you could have some short-term income by developing products that you could sell. A person I would encourage you to watch on YouTube is Mark Liu. Mark Liu inspired me to create the tools that I'm creating with Search Console, and he's got all sorts of advice on how you can make money with these. The thing is, though, I don't think that's long-term, because I think a lot of these tools, eventually everybody will have their own AI assistants that will just do it for you. And then I just want to share a little bit of a personal story. My husband has this saying, and I didn't like it when he said it at first. And it's funny, as I was recording this podcast, I recorded it for a full hour and then lost the entire recording. And then David said the thing he always says, well, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. I have been through a really bad number of years. A lot of bad stuff has happened. Some of you heard the story of how Google Maps stranded me in the woods and I ended up spending the night in a puddle and my Pixel phone died just as I was calling 911. And the cops laughed at me because my license plate at the time said, "Thank you, Google." I got rid of that because people were cutting me off on the highway. At the same time, I had an undiagnosed 8mm kidney stone. I had so many things went wrong in my life. And also I was running a business, which I had 12 incredible employees that I laid off. And it was a really, really difficult time for me. So that was 2022. And at the same time, that's when ChatGPT came out. And I believe that had my life been going in a great direction, had I been making millions of dollars in a successful business, then I would have continued in that direction and I wouldn't have spent all of this time studying AI. And so I think everything happens for a reason. And I think even when you're really down and struggling, that there is hope. because I thoroughly believe that AI is going to improve our lives for the better. The other thing that I would highly recommend you do is learn to prompt, learn to communicate with language models. I have a new free email. If you go to mariehaynes.com/prompts, PROMPTS, and sign up there, you'll get a free weekly email with something that can inspire you to prompt. You can learn what language models are, do a little bit of introspection with them, and learn, how to make great images. Every week I'm going to send you an interesting thing on how to prompt. I also have a community called the Search Bar where you can go completely for free. Again, community.mariehaynes.com. And I write me and some other great members write all of the cool stuff that's happening in AI so you can stay up to date in real time. There is a paid section as well for those of us who go deeper. We have brainstorming meetings to talk about how do we bring AI to our clients? How do we prosper from learning this new technology? Well, I have to say, I never know how to finish these episodes. I always have this great time talking, and then I get to the end and I'm like, oh, what do I say? So I gave my episode notes to Gemini and asked Gemini to write the end. So here's what Gemini said. We've talked about the massive AI investments and the grand future visions, and it can feel distant from where we are now, maybe just using prompts or feeling job anxiety. So how do we get from here to there? I think the answer is simpler and more profound than we realize. We are the bridge. We're the ones living through this shift, learning to connect today's tools with tomorrow's potential. Yes, disruption is happening, but disruption clears space. It demands the human skills of directing this new intelligence, of finding opportunities where our insight meets AI's power. So my final thought is this. This is my final thought or Gemini's. Actually, I think it's intertwined. Don't just watch the change happen. Be a part of shaping it. Start laying your stone on that bridge. Learn this new language of AI. Experiment. Try building something. Because the future isn't just something that arrives. It's something we actively create. One prompt, one idea at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I wish you the best of luck with everything.